Kent Hughes and the Habs are heating up on this trade deadline as Montreal makes one trade, brokers another, and there's apparently a lot of calls coming in for multiple Habs players. I'm going to be breaking that down on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's trade deadline edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse. Reminder to hit that subscribe button right now, please. We're on a road to 5,000 subs. We just crossed 4,200. We know you can help us out, and this is going to be an exciting day. Hopefully there's more news coming out soon, but I'm going to get right into the first topic today. The Habs are taking calls on Dvorak and Monahan. Yes, the Habs made a trade, and just as I started recording, another one just broke as I looked down at my phone, so we're going to be getting into all that, but the number one thing I want to mention right now is the fact that Frank Saravalli has mentioned this morning that the Habs have received multiple calls from multiple teams about the availability of Christian Dvorak. So that's an interesting thing, and if you guys watched yesterday's video, Jesse mentioned that Dvorak is the guy that he thinks Montreal is going to trade. I think maybe it's a little less possible than someone like Edmundson before the trade deadline hits, not too long from now. But hey, the fact that teams are calling about Dvorak, a young-ish center who's a very solid player, can fit on a lot of playoff teams, it's not really surprising. His point total, his goal scoring has upped as of late. His faceoffs are always decent. He's always a good penalty kill guy. And if you need him, he can slide in on the power play. He's not a stranger to it. He's a fairly big body playing in front of the net's not that weird to him. So Christian Dvorak getting some interest from a lot of teams is really not surprising. Jesse was bang on about that. I am seeing a lot of people saying, oh, we shouldn't trade him because there's no way that Montreal would get back what they gave up to get him in that whole Kotkaniemi draft pick thing. I think it was a first and a third that Marc Bergevin traded for Christian Dvorak. So no, I don't think Montreal would get that kind of return, but you never know. And even if they don't, who cares? Sunk cost fallacy, right? That happened a while ago, whatever. But if you really want to move him, you want to move on, don't forget the Habs got Chris Tierney, who can play center for the rest of the season. Monahan, who I'll get into in a second, if he doesn't get moved, he can play center. And for the rest of the season, once Dach is back, we still got Suzuki. And then Belzile can play a bit of center, so can Drouin. And then, there's just so much going on at that center position that, Dvorak's great. But if you get the opportunity to trade him for a lot, I say you might as well go for it if you're Kent Hughes. But we don't know what kind of offers are coming in from other teams. Maybe Kent Hughes has just said, no, we're not trading Dvorak. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But we'll talk about Sean Monahan now. Jacob Stoller, not a ton of sources, but, he does have a few. He's not always on the scene, so not always right. But it's worth talking about this tweet saying he's told the Montreal Canadiens, when you spell Canadians wrong, usually it doesn't exactly hold much water, but this was on the Habs subreddit. People seem to think that this could be legitimate. He says he's been told the Montreal Canadiens are receiving calls on Sean Monahan. The belief is that Montreal wants a mid-round pick for Monahan. This, I'm not sure I believe as much. It wouldn't surprise me if the Habs were getting calls on Monahan, but the thing is, with his cap hit, with his injury history, I don't see many teams really willing to pay a whole lot. And he says that Montreal would want a mid-round draft pick. Yeah, of course, Montreal got a first when they got Monahan from Calgary, so getting another pick out of it, and he'll be a UFA this summer, maybe Montreal can go back and try and sign him back if he really liked being a member of the team. That's also possible, but I'm less inclined to believe this tweet over some other reports. I personally don't think Monahan's going to get moved. I think that Kent Hughes would probably like a decent bit for Monahan, especially given the performance he could give a playoff caliber team come playoff time if he's healthy. Mid-round draft pick, I don't see Montreal going trading Monahan for something like a third or a fourth round pick. It just doesn't seem in Kent Hughes' MO, especially when the Habs have said they really want to keep veterans around the young guys to help them mature. So if you've seen that rumor, I would really take it with a grain of salt. I personally don't really believe it, but hey, you never know. Maybe before the deadline's over, there'll be a surprise deal for Monahan, but I figured I might as well speak about that at the very least. And finally today, I want to, there might be another episode before the day's over. Montreal's probably going to make another trade, but Hughes did make a trade today. He did make a trade, and I'm going to bring this up for you. The Canadiens have acquired defenseman Frederic Allard, Quebec boy, from the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for forward Nate Schnarr. And if you guys don't know who these players are, well, you should probably know Nate Schnarr's name. He's been around the Habs for a while. He's never really played on Montreal, but Frederic Allard, if you didn't know him, he's a right-handed defenseman currently playing for the Ontario Reign in the AHL. He's played one NHL game in his career with Nashville in 2020-2021. He's been mostly an AHL guy, but he's a very solid player, sort of a fill-in guy for the AHL, and you can see in the queue, he was getting 14 goals as a defenseman. He has a bit of goal-scoring potential, I suppose. Nothing crazy, but just a solid right-handed D-man who doesn't seem to make a ton of mistakes. At least that's what I've garnered when I've looked through some information about Frederic Allard. And what was he traded for? Well, he was traded for Nate Schnarr, who, as you can see, has played, he's in his second season with the Laval Rocket, and he has 7 points in 27 games as a forward. Yeah, he is a forward, really not putting up many goals, many points. Some people who have watched Laval games have said he looks to be a bit invisible. So this move, at first there was a lot of speculation saying, oh, Montreal's doing this because Barron got hurt in last night's game, which he did, unfortunately. We don't really know the injury status there. But if Edmundson gets traded and Barron's hurt, Montreal might need an extra defenseman to fill in. And Allard plays for Ontario, which is, I know it sounds weird, but that's in California, right next to LA. And Montreal plays Anaheim tonight, so it could be their sixth defenseman. No, that's not what's going on. The Habs have stated immediately Frederic Allard is on his way to Laval to join the Rocket. It's not a move. There was a lot of speculation very quickly from different people like Arber and Eric Engels saying, oh yeah, maybe he can be the fill-in guy. That's why they did this trade. I don't think Kent Hughes would have made a trade just to get a fill-in defenseman for that night's game. Maybe it's possible, but I don't even know. But no, Frederic Allard is going to Laval, and he'll be sticking with the Rocket. And it seems like, because of Montreal's defense issues and their need to call up some guys from Laval on occasion, especially if they are to trade Edmundson, it doesn't mean like what's going to happen to Laval is their defense core could be rotted down to almost nothing very quickly. So making a move like this, Nate Schnarr, who has really not thrived in the Laval system, give him a new shot on a new team, bring in a guy who is like sort of high up AHL level defenseman who has played at least a game in the NHL. Let him go to Laval and fill in that depth on defense. I think it's a very good move from Kent Hughes. And yeah, it's a depth move, sure. But at the same time, I think it's that kind of move that you like to see from your GM to bolster your AHL team, because Montreal's had a lot of guys coming up from the AHL, and it's always good to have a solid foundation down there for the guys who come up. And final thing I wanted to mention, I didn't have time to put any title cards or any images of this, because literally just as I was about to hit record, I looked at my phone and this happened. I said, well, I'll just record and I'll talk about it anyway. The Habs have finally brokered a deal, and what I mean by brokered a deal is I think they're taking on some salary in a trade and they're getting a draft pick in return. The Nick Bonino trade to Pittsburgh, I believe it's Nick Bonino for Brock McGinn. I could be wrong, or maybe McGinn was in the Kulikov trade. I don't know, but I think it's the Nick Bonino trade with Pittsburgh. Montreal is facilitating it, holding on to a bit of salary, and they're getting a 5th round draft pick for their troubles. Not that much, no, but it's something. Montreal apparently has been trying to do that throughout this whole trade deadline week. Haven't been able to really make it work with a few teams, but finally they do in this Nick Bonino trade. So Montreal gets a free 5th round draft pick. It's always good when you get a free pick, but yeah, I keep an eye out for trades that are going to come the rest of the day. I'm checking my phone as we speak here, just in case there's anything coming out here. Yeah, okay, so here we go. This is live. It's not live, but I'm going to talk about this anyway, because why not? Someone put out full details of the Bonino trade. San Jose trades Bonino and their 2024 5th round pick to Montreal in exchange for the rights to Arvid Henriksen. Never heard of him. San Jose trades Tony Sund to Pittsburgh in exchange for draft picks, whatever. Montreal trades Bonino to Pittsburgh in exchange for Sund and will retain 50% of Bonino's salary. So Montreal gets Tony Sund and a 5th round pick, is what it seems like. I don't know anything about Tony Sund. Do I look it up now? Yeah, why not? I'm going to look it up now. Who cares? This doesn't need to be professional. I'm going to check it out on HockeyDB while we're doing this. This is just a live thing. It's trade deadline day. I'm going to do this kind of stuff. So Tony Sund is a 27-year-old defenseman who currently is playing in the Swedish Hockey League for Rögle. He has 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points in 40 games in the SHL. Undrafted. Yeah, he was signed by the Sharks in 2019, has never come over to the NHL, so it's basically just a nothing move. So the Habs do just get a 5th round pick, and technically his rights, but it doesn't seem like he'll end up coming over. So yeah, there you go. That's the full details. Kent Hughes makes 1 trade and facilitates another, so I guess that's technically 2 trades, plus they're taking calls on Dvorak and Monahan. If any big trade breaks, I'll be hopefully the first to get the news out to you guys. But in the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of Habs Digest. Maybe there'll be one later today. If you enjoyed, leave a comment, like, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 5,000 subs. Hope you guys can help us out with that. I'm Josh Gosse. We'll catch you in the next one.